As midnight approached, I arrived at the hotel. Outside, it was silent. Even the wind moved slowly between the streets. The building's facade was old dark stains on the stone walls, heavy curtains in the windows. When I stepped inside, a dim light greeted my eyes, casting long shadows across the worn floor. The lobby was more active than I expected. A few passengers dragged their luggage, a man stared at his phone, and a couple whispered arguments to each other, yet everything felt unreal. Voices muffled, movements slow, faces expressionless. A disquieting unease grew inside me. I collected my key from the reception. 1307. Without lingering, I headed for the elevator. The doors creaked open. I stepped in alone and pressed 13. As the elevator rose, the sounds of each floor faded, leaving the lobby's hum behind. The red numbers on the display moved slowly. 12, then 13 lit up. The doors groaned as they opened. The corridor was empty. The hotel seemed to have fallen silent all at once. This was not simple silence. It was heavy, oppressive, a void that filled my ears. My footsteps echoed despite the carpet. Door numbers seemed irregular, and when I shifted my gaze, they appeared to change place. I opened my room door. The interior smelled old, dampness, dust, and curtains that had not been aired in years. I placed my bag on the bed and turned on the light. The bulb flickered. At first, it seemed normal, but after a few seconds, it synchronized with my heartbeat. Shadows stretched and shrank with every flash, curling and disappearing along the walls. I stood still for a moment. From outside came a scraping noise, like metal being dragged across the floor. I opened the door and looked corridor empty. The lights flickered, and the lines of the walls seemed to shift in the darkness. I closed the door and turned back. On the desk, an old book caught my eye. Its leather cover was worn, edges frayed. As I approached, the book shifted slightly. I blinked, and it stopped moving. My breath quickened. I checked my watch. 3:14. I blinked. 3:02. A few seconds later, 3:27. Time seemed to lose all logic. Suddenly, the door slammed. It was locked. My heart pounded. I glanced at the chair in the corner. The cushion was compressed, as if someone had just sat there. My voice caught in my throat. From the corridor came a new sound. Tick, tick, tick. Irregular, dissonant, like a clock out of sync. It scraped against my ears. I stepped out. The corridor lights flickered. One door stood ajar, from which mixed whispers emerged. I did not approach, quickly moving away. As I headed toward the emergency exit, an old suitcase on the floor caught my eye. Dust-covered, yet the top layer was disturbed, as if handled recently. I bent down to look when a cold wind blew through the windows. Curtains moved without wind. I ran to the elevator. The doors opened. I stepped inside and pressed for the ground floor. The doors closed. The elevator descended a few meters, then jolted violently. The display froze at 13. When the doors opened, I was back on the same floor. But this time, the details had changed. The corridor was slightly shorter, doors arranged differently. My room door closer. Inside, the book was gone, the chair empty, the light steady. I checked my watch, 23:47. I stood there for a moment. Had I imagined what just happened, or had time truly bent? Gathering courage, I took the elevator again and pressed the ground floor. The elevator closed, descended slowly. The display showed 11, then 10. I began to feel relief when suddenly the elevator went dark. Nothing on the display. A cold wave passed through the cabin. Then, in red, 13 lit up again. The doors opened. The corridor was the same, but all the lights were off. Only a door at the far end was slightly open, glowing with reddish light. I uttered an involuntary sound. I did not approach, averting my eyes. Returning to my room was the only option. The book was back on the desk, closed. But now it lay open, pages turning by themselves, without wind. The chair had a more distinct imprint, as if someone was still sitting. Cold sweat ran down my back. "There's no one here," I whispered, but my words echoed in the room, returning in a voice that was not mine, thicker, slower, as if repeating what I had said. Panicked, I headed for the elevator again. This time the doors opened immediately. I stepped in, pressed the ground floor. The elevator worked, descended smoothly. Hope returned. When the doors opened, I was on the 13th floor again. But everything was normal this time. The corridor lights were steady. No suitcase. I checked my watch. 23:50. Everything appeared ordinary. I returned to my room. The book was closed on the desk, the chair straight, the light steady. It was as if none of the previous events had happened. Still, I could feel that gaze under my skin. Grabbing my bag in a rush, I shut the door behind me and hurried out of the hotel, certain I would never again dare to spend a night in one.